Should you use a polarization filter when shooting video, and what are the benefits of doing so? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about polarization filters and why I love them so much. Personally, I've used these type of polarization filters for several years now, and I couldn't be happier. In this video tutorial, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to review the Hoya HD filter series, these circular polarizing filters that work very, very well for digital cameras. And of course, you don't have to buy like the expensive filters made in Japan. I've even tested more affordable filters, and even those can produce very nice results. But if you're just starting out shooting video, for example, for YouTube, maybe you're interested in vlogging or doing product reviews and tutorials such as me, then learning about filters is really, really valuable. And to come back to this filter that I have here, the best way to explain this is maybe with a pair of sunglasses, like these Maui Jims. Maybe you have used a pair of polarizing sunglasses before, then you should be very familiar with the effect that these sunglasses can produce. And for me personally, I was on vacation in Florida once, and whoops, that's another pair that I own. But the point that I want to make, like, I was on vacation and I was the first time in my life putting on polarizing sunglasses. And guys, if you're in Florida and there's nice sunshine, green, and the ocean breeze, and you put on a pair of polarizing sunglasses that really make the colors pop, it's like a night and day difference. And obviously that was long before I started with YouTube, but that experience really stuck with me. So maybe if you've never seen it, maybe someone at your home has polarizing sunglasses. Maybe on a nice day, take them and look at the greens with polarizing sunglasses and without. The bottom line really is polarization is great. It makes the colors pop, and it can really help you to create those awesome vivid images that I guess most people really like. So basically what I'm going to do, because it's not all about polarization, but polarization is a really important part to getting the most, or using filters is a really important part to getting the most out of your camera. So this is the introductory part, but in part 2, I'm going to show you what kind of settings you can pick with your camera before you put on various filters of your choice. And then in combination from what you have learned in the settings part, in part 3, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to shoot some test footage first without the polarization filter. Then I put the polarization filter on, and you can see what kind of significant difference it can produce whether you use polarization filter or not. So it's like a little bit of a before and after shot. And then in part 4, I'm going to summarize everything once more. So guys, without further ado, let's get started with the perfect settings to get the most out of your video recordings. So let's go to the settings and then shoot the test footage.
So guys, right now we jumped into the computer and I'm quickly gonna walk you through the settings on my camera. For this, I again took my trusty little iPhone and took a background shot from behind the scenes, so to speak. And if we quickly open this up, you can see what kind of settings I usually pick on my Canon EOS M. And to quickly repeat this, I shot this exact example maybe a few minutes ago when I also explained ND filter, because usually I'm using both. I'm using the polarization filter and the ND filter because from my experience, the combination of two filter types, ND and polarization, yields the best results for me. Let's quickly recap that I'm shooting in full HD at 25 frames per second, and I also adhere to this often mentioned 180-degree rule that says you should, if you shoot at 25 frames per second, you should have twice the shutter speed, because in essence that will give you this kind of movie kind of look that you're used from when watching TV or going to the movies. And a good example to test this in your case would be, let's say for example you take your camera and you shoot in full HD with 25 or even 30 frames per second, and you take a shutter speed that's not twice that, and you have moving objects, people who move around, or try filming cars that drive on the road passing by, and you will notice in the footage when you come home and you examine your footage, that it will look very, very odd if you don't follow this rule of picking the correct shutter speed that corresponds to twice your frame rate. So in essence, let's move on to aperture. You see these two values are sort of fixed. We're not going to change anything here. So that leaves basically the aperture that you can use to regulate how much light comes into your camera, because already I filmed today on an overcast day with some clouds in my room, and you see the ISO is on 200. This is almost the lowest setting. The lowest setting is ISO 100. That is the least sensitive I can change, set the camera on, the sensor of the camera that records the video. And like I said before, the moment you start to regulate the intensity of the light that hits your sensor in the camera with the aperture, obviously you can use aperture if you're in a pinch, you don't have a filter. You can take the aperture, put it up high, and less light will come into your camera. But of course, like I said in the previous video, that comes at the expense. You lose the blurry background effect, and for the most part, people want that flexibility. People want to be able to create the blurry background effect, because what the blurry background effect does for you, as you can see here, it makes the object, it makes here, in this case, the filter really pop. That's what's in here, the center of gravity, the center of attention. If you have a person, or if you watch a movie and you see a person and the background is blurry, all the focus will be on the face, or all the focus will be on the product that you're reviewing. So the blurry background in my playbook is a must and a really important creative tool. So that's why we always want to have a relatively low aperture. So in essence, shutter speed and aperture, you're kind of limited. So the only thing that's left to regulate the light intensity is the ISO, which is almost at the lowest setting. So the moment you step outside on a sunny day, your images will be terribly overexposed. It's going to be absolutely non-workable, and that's why we use filters. Now, the polarizing filter is a little bit different than the ND filter, because it takes away a relatively small amount of light. In fact, if you're only using the polarization filter, it will not take away enough light. The polarization filter is a little bit of a special thing, because essentially what it does, maybe I can try to illustrate this here. When you look at this upper corner, I mean, you see some light reflection, some light is coming in, bouncing off this package, and that's why this is not entirely black. If I just scrub a little bit forward, I mean, maybe you can see a point. I'm moving this package and I'm just tilting it a little bit, and you see, wow, all of a sudden it's much darker down here, and that just has simply to do with the way the light hits this package and reflects it. And the same principle applies for this sunglasses box. You can see it's not completely brown, it's not completely in this bamboo color, simply because the light hits the surface and bounces back, and that kind of messes with the colors. It creates some sort of reflection, and you don't always want the reflection, and that is what the polarizing filter is for. Again, I'm going to scrub a little bit forward, and maybe you can see I tilt the package, and bang, do you see? It's the colors are much more vivid. You don't have this reflection to deal with. So now the question is, wouldn't it be nice you could have the same kind of effect? Because obviously you can't tilt all the objects. Well, I can tilt a tiny package like that. I can certainly not just grab a car and tilt it around. In fact, cars are really great examples, because cars have so many different surfaces. You have the hood, you have the side panels, you have the roof, you have the glass. So if you really want to test a polarization filter, let's say you have just bought a polarization filter and you want to test it, just go out on a sunny day and film a car, and then turn the dial on this polarization filter, and you will see, depending on how you change the polarization, you will literally see how it moves around the different surfaces on a car, which that's the best way I can explain it right now. So to illustrate it even more, why don't I close this? I explained the settings to you, so let's close this up. And the only thing left to do is to jump to Puff 3, go outside, shoot some test footage with polarization filter, and shoot some test footage without the polarization filter, and that's I'm gonna try as good as possible to illustrate this point, because obviously it doesn't only work on packagings or on cars. It also works outside on plants. If you imagine plants, they have lots of different surfaces, or water for that matter. So a polarization filter is a really versatile thing and super useful to have, because obviously you want vivid colors. That's what makes the video really nice. So without further ado, I will continue to talk. Let's jump to part 3 and look at the test footage.
So guys, and right now I went outside to test the Hoya polarizing filter. And you see, as always, at my favorite spot, the boats are driving by. Right now we're not having the filter attached, and maybe I can just hold the filter in front of it to show you a little bit of a difference. And again, yet another boat is passing by, and maybe you can see that the filter helps to create a little bit more vivid colors. The colors pop once you use the filter in front of the camera. So I'm just going to quickly put this on, because like I said previously, the thing with the filter, and apologizing, the boats create the waves. The thing with the filter is you can turn it. You see, I turn the dial on the filter, and depending on which angle I'm at to the sun and the way I change the circular polarization. But the bottom line is, like, you see how the blues from the sky and from the foliage, from the autumn, from the trees, they come out way more in the image. So that's the kind of use that you would use for a polarizing filter like that. And again, I'm using the Hoya HD filter series, which is great for digital cameras. Those are kind of premium kind of filters. And again, you see I dial the filter, and now the top part, the sky, is not as blue. I'm dialing it back, and the colors come out really, really nicely. So the Hoya circular polarization filter in combination with an ND filter such as this, it's really the combination that I found to create the best possible results. So that basically would mean you put on the ND filter first if you're in an environment where there's a lot of light, and then the Hoya on top. Right now I'm only using the Hoya because the sun is going down, so I'm not having to deal with a lot of light. But yeah. And guys, obviously you can use the polarization filter also while vlogging. It's a little bit kind of crazy contraption to walk around for when people are looking at me, but it works pretty well. So guys, so let's do one final shot. Right now I'm only using the polarization filter, and I'm gonna move the camera up a little bit. And as you can see, the colors don't look that bad, but next up I'm just gonna dial the filter to again look for the sweet spot. Here, see, that's not the sweet spot. I dial, and here again you can see the colors of the sky look really, really nice. And that's basically how I use the polarization filter, and how you can get really, really nice quality colors out of your video. And if you don't have the filter, it would never look that kind of nice. You wouldn't have that really nice color profile that comes out of your camera. So guys, now we jump to part 4, the conclusion part and summary part. Just to repeat this one more time, I really have clearly shown you how beneficial it is to use a circular polarizing filter, because obviously, as I have demonstrated, it really helps you to improve the colors and vividness of your images. And as you can see here, I can just turn this, it's really slim, the filter is really slim, and you can turn this ring, and by turning the ring you change the polarization. And guys, that's literally all that there is to it. You just get a filter like this in the right size, you put it in front of your camera, and then you turn that ring in front of it until you get the most crisp images. And I really found, looking at the recorded footage and while I was recording, the colors really pop, especially the sky and the foliage on those autumn leaves. You just get better colors out of this. So a polarizing filter in my playbook is a total must for every guy and girl who wants to shoot videos or do photography. It really, really enhances the quality that you get out of your valuable time that you spend when creating content. And if you haven't already done so, maybe you also want to check out my second video for ND filters, because ND filters work a little bit different than polarization filters. They just take away light. So if you work with a low aperture to get that blurry background effect, the ND filters are also extremely useful. And in my experience, the combination creates the best result, ND filter and polarizing filter. So I invite you to check out more videos on my channel. I also have a review about the Canon EOS M, the camera that I use to shoot this content right now. Or you can find a review about the Nikon DSLR or even a 4K Sony Alpha 6300. So there's a lot of content about audio and video equipment on my channel. And I see you as a subscriber and in the next video. All the best to you guys. Take care.
And since you watched right now the video about the Hoya polarizing filter, you may also be interested in my Canon EOS M3 that I used to shoot this review and tutorial. Because besides video equipment, I also have lots of audio gear on my channel. And guys, I see you as a subscriber and maybe even in one of my online courses. I wish you all the best and success. All the best to you. Take care.